JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, January 21st, 919 on this fine Wednesday morning. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P futures just reversed into the green. S&P's up. Well, I shouldn't say just, but you have Trump doing his Davos speech. I guess that's some of it, but S&P futures up about 0.4% after being pretty much flat this morning. Actually had leaked from the overnight hours from the green into the red. Yeah, so interesting. We'll see what today brings. This morning, I talked about it yesterday. He had his Davos speech. So he already did his big 1 year anniversary speech yesterday afternoon at the press, at the White House press briefing, which typically you have the press secretary, but he did his, it was a long one. I didn't even get a chance to listen to it all. So you would think the stuff that he pretty much said yesterday afternoon was going to be the same stuff he did at the Davos speech. And it seems like I can't listen to it, but it looks like most of the stuff is the same. Talked a little about Greenland and then the Golden Dome, right? And I guess this big plan with Canada and Greenland. Who knows how that whole looks out? But L3 Harris, maybe I'll get some calls here today. But we'll see what today brings. You know, I talked about yesterday was like unless you had puts Friday afternoon at the close, and then maybe close them at the open or held or what. It was a very hard day to try and play for downside yesterday. And you know, I look at names to play for downside: the Lam Research, ASML, Broadcom, sometimes AMD, and those were names where they were in the red, and Broadcom opened down 2%, then bounced, then chopped around for most of the rest of the day, and then the afternoon sold off into the close. But unless you timed it exactly perfect, you're in the red on the put position. So nothing more frustrating with the S&P being down 2% than being red on a position that's playing for downside. So me, and I put on a watch list, I'd rather try to deploy capital on for nibble for bounces as opposed to trying to play for downside, unless I think we're just in the start of a bigger pull to the downside. Maybe we are. I don't think that's the case yet. I still think economic growth is strong. We have earnings coming. To me, I think if this whole situation with the U.S. and Europe and the tariffs was a bigger than well, let's say if it is what the markets, if what the media is making it out to be, I would think the market would be substantially lower, and that's not the case. So we'll see what happens here today. The thing I'm watching is the yields, the 10-year. That's got to come down, right? If the yields continue to head higher, that's kind of, I wouldn't call it the canary in the coal mine, but that's the thing that would concern me, is that we get yields rising to a point where even forcibly trying to get the yields to come down doesn't work. And then you get this runaway freight train, and then that causes a whole big, lots of other issues. And then it won't matter if we're in a recession, won't matter growth, equities will get destroyed. So I'm hoping that's not the case. At some point, we find some footing here. But take a look at the 10-year yesterday, and you can see one of its biggest daily moves in quite some time. So we'll watch what happens here today. 687, 686 on the spot. That'd be a big spot. I don't know if we'll get there today. We're at 680. On the downside, that's 676, 677 spot. If we get there and we can't hold, that might be a spot, kind of like a line in the sand situation where I get some put hedges. And for me, SQQQ calls is probably the way. And again, similar to the Broadcom calls yesterday, outputs. That would have been tough to trade to play for protection unless you got them Friday. So, all right, that's kind of overall markets. I remain cautiously optimistic. Hopefully we can chop around, find some footing. Tomorrow we get PCE data. So flat in line, even if it's a little hotter expectations, nothing crazy there. And then you have Intel earnings after the close. So maybe that alleviates some of the concerns in regards to what's going on possibly with, there's still rumblings, of course, in the AI space. All right, so that's overall markets. Just quick on individual names. First, I don't want to waste too much time on SERV Robotics, but awesome news after the close yesterday. Acquiring Diligent Robot. It's a robotic company. They have a Moxie robot that they deploy in hospitals, right? It's like a little freaky looking, but it's like a little hospital cart on wheels with a robot that controls it, right? I mean, to me, I think it's phenomenal, right? If you look at some of the tasks that nurses have to do, some they have to carry supplies. There's like medial tasks that they do on a daily basis. If you find a solution that alleviates having to do that, it frees up, not only makes them more productive, it frees up more time. They become more efficient, can treat more patients, better outcomes for patients, the hospitals. Like it's a whole win-win-win scenario. So here's a company, it's pretty, I think 2016, somewhere in there. These two ladies, I was trying to watch all the stuff, didn't have time yesterday afternoon, but just a great story. So right now they're in some hospitals. They say that each Moxie robot is $200,000 to $400,000 in annual revenue. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know the exact numbers, but That's like just kind of like the headlines, right? So I'll have to do some more due diligence. But to me, this opens a whole nother addressable market. There's 6,000 hospitals in the U.S. You tell me, I'm not saying they're going to get in 6,000 hospitals, but if you do the math, 6,000 hospitals times $200 to $400,000 in annual revenue, that's between 1.2 billion, excuse me, to 2.4 billion in possible annual recurring revenue. Who knows what the margins look like? There's no, this is just fuzzy math, right? But to me, it's just another bull case for a name that's going to have huge top line growth to begin with this year. And to me, it creates good uncertainty, right? What other avenues are they looking to get in? They have 300 million in cash, 310 million in cash. They're only using 29 million of that to acquire this company for cash. So we'll see what happens here today. Yesterday was 14 and change for most of the morning. I almost went and got some March 18 strikes. And then in the afternoon, it had a pull. Then it's 1335, bounced around, closed 1336. It holds here at 1375 today. I might finally pull the trigger on more strikes there in SERV. So that's SERV. Got some strikes on Roku yesterday, 5 days in a row to the downside. So I'm waiting for the bounce. You also have Netflix earnings. I thought maybe there was some type of sympathy move as well. I think the chart is set up regardless. After the close yesterday, Netflix had a decent report, right? There's concerns, a little miss on their guidance. The concerns is around their Warner Brothers acquisition. To me, when I was talking about on Rant yesterday afternoon, the thing with Netflix is like, I don't like companies that go out and do acquisitions. Netflix did great creating their platform and their business without having to do all these massive acquisitions. We'll see how this all plays out. But stock is trading lower in the pre-market. It's down, I don't know, 25% since it's split, 50% since its highs back in the summer. I don't know if it's a bounce, but don't be surprised if it starts to find some legs in the morning. It's sitting here at $82. I might look for some spec lottos here today on Netflix. And on the other side is Roku. So if it gets a bid, I can see Roku trading 110 plus this week. I got the 110 strikes that were actually solidly green most of the morning, up 50% or so. And then there was an afternoon pull. And then similarly, what happens with market, right? The stock, Roku rallies, it's near 105, and my calls are barely gaining premium. And then it drops and the premiums just get destroyed. So we'll see what happens here today. Looks like it's going to open in the green. 50-day moving average 104.24. It gets over that. I think it's off to the races. That's Roku. Roblox disappointing yesterday, giving back some of last week's gains. It's either set for resuming its downtrend, and you have to watch in the 70s, or yesterday was kind of like a blip, and then it starts to resume its uptrend. 50-day moving average 89.52. So I'll be watching for more opportunities to play that for upside. Thankfully, locked calls in and profits last week. So that's Roblox. And then just other names. Look at SanDisk, right? If there's a name, and I'm not saying SanDisk can't rally with the market selling off, but the market's down 2%. SanDisk is up nearly 10% yesterday. Who remembers trading this one as $100 and bagging some money on the call side, and now it's up at $470. At some time, this is going to be some great opportunities for puts. I don't know if it's at 500, 600, and not only that, premiums are expensive. So, but if you're looking for almost like a proxy for market sentiment, SanDisk might be a good name to watch to see if the market really is at the point where we're ready to have some major pullback. For now, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. That's that. L3 Harris, right? That might be another name. The Golden Dome. I mean, L3 Harris is the only name that has their hands in every part of that thing that's at some point it's going to come to fruition, or at least the money is going to come in, contracts, things like that. You already had the $1 billion investment in their spinoff, so that could be a name I get some spec calls on as well. And then on the flip side, always be hedging. So if we do get some kind of pull here and 676 doesn't hold, yield starts soaring, I'll be looking at my names I normally do. ASML is probably the one because it's been strong relative to the market, but if things start to pull, that could be for some decent risk reward. All right, so have a great day. I'll be back rocking.